Welcome to the Get On Point Business Podcast, where I talk with entrepreneurs, founders, and business owners to explore their journeys, lessons, and insights, as well as uncover the stories behind the successes and challenges of building a business. I'm Jason Mundy, a Focal Point certified business and executive coach, operating advisor, and a fractional chief marketing officer, as well as the founder and president of On Point Business Advisors. Today, I'm excited to welcome a very special guest, Matt Smith. Matt is the principal of Receptor, a creative agency trusted with designing and amplifying brands that resonate. Receptor has been providing brand development, graphic design, and website design services to clients big and small for over 30 years. Matt is not only the owner of Receptor, he's a client of mine, and I've also been Matt's client 2 times. I first met Matt when I hired his agency to take over the website maintenance of a SaaS company where I was leading the marketing, and Matt and his team just built my new website for my business, onpoint-advisors.com. Check it out. It's awesome. So Matt, welcome to the show and thanks for being my guest. I'm super excited.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited as well.
Great. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Sounds good.
All right. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Yeah, of course, I'm the principal, as you mentioned, at Receptor. So we're a creative agency, a team of about 6 folks, all located in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And as the principal at a creative agency, I wear a lot of hats, much like many of the members of my team do as well. Obviously, I'm running the show as far as the business is concerned, but I'm also still very much involved in the creative process. I'm a graphic designer as well as a website designer and developer, and a little bit of animation skills and video editing as well. So, being a small team, we wear a lot of different hats, as they mentioned, and as part of that, I'm still playing a big role in the creative too.
Excellent. That's awesome. So you're a small but mighty team of 6 employees. What are Receptor's key capabilities or specialties?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I mean, being a brand development agency, we can play a pretty significant role in any company's branding or marketing initiatives. Branding, of course, covers a wide gamut of creative skills, including general graphic design, logo development, brand identity establishment, coming up with your brand story, concept, as well as all the different types of collateral and pieces you'll need to be able to promote yourself. So that can be a pitch deck, it can be your marketing collateral, case studies, ebooks, things of that nature, designing and developing the website, uh, working with the company to help with digital marketing initiatives. So email, social media creative, explainer video animations, you name it, we pretty much do it. And we work with a lot of different types of companies, big and small, and naturally they all have different needs, but we really pride ourselves in being a one-stop shop for any of those needs and being able to, you know, uh, help with whatever volume they may have.
Now, you mentioned you work with companies big and small. Are there any specific industries that you specialize in or types of businesses that you focus on?
Yeah, so naturally, just as a byproduct of all the different types of creative that we do, we're a very flexible agency to work with. We don't always hang our hat on working with one particular type of client, either size or business type. We have had a historic sweet spot in software tech as well as security tech, but that transcends our capabilities transcend that and go into things like nonprofit work, healthcare, technology, things of that nature, entertainment even. So we're really, really adaptable team that likes to really work with the client, understand what their unique goals are as far as how they want to promote themselves, and be able to effectively put together some great looking materials for them.
Very cool. Tell us a bit about like what motivated you to buy the business. What was your journey? So Receptor's been around for 30 years. Obviously, you weren't there for 30 years, but you did work there first. So tell us about that story.
Yeah, so my story is kind of an interesting one. I mean, I never really, if you asked me 10 years ago if I'd be taking over this business one day or any business, I would have thought you were crazy. But life is funny like that, and that's just kind of the path that was laid before me. So when I started at this company, I was just an intern going month to month right out of college 13 years ago, just living and dying every day, just scraping and trying to, get by and be part of the team and, be accepted into, the culture of what we're doing here. And over time, as I got more solidified, started to work my way up in the ranks, started developing new skills, bringing different capabilities to the table that the company was able to do, such as website design and development, which had historically been outsourced at that time. Just kind of naturally began to start developing myself as a leader at the company. And then as my founder was mulling over potentially retiring, uh, there began talk about the succession plan, and it was introduced to me if that was something that I would be interested in. And it was a no-brainer for me. I think for myself, I've always really kind of looked at my trajectory year over year here at this company and just tried to make sure that I was improving myself in some way, shape, or form, if that included just learning new skills, sharpening up my abilities, or just being able to take on new roles and responsibilities. It just seemed like the logical next step for me. And having spent so much time here, it was just a slam dunk of an idea. So I really, was excited about the prospect of doing that. At the time, we didn't really have much of a timetable for this when we first started discussing. It was just something that we knew we were going to be working towards. But then as 2020 rolled around, the world shuts down, the nature of what we were doing was changing really significantly and shifting to a fully remote workforce. It really expedited the process of me taking the ball and running it with it from there. And then in the summer of 2022, I officially took over, and the rest is history.
That's very cool. So, having an internal employee by the business, very serendipitous, but you were well positioned. So it sounded like it was the logical choice. You were the logical choice, and it was a logical choice for you to take over the business. So I think that's awesome. What what inspires you the most? And was there a specific moment when you knew this was the right path for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm inspired every day by the work that the team is doing here. And I think that's been true for the entirety of my time at this company. Um, I remember just coming in as an intern and interviewing and meeting, the small but mighty team that we had, which was even smaller at the time, and just being really awestruck by how bright and creative and but also very open that the team was at the time, including my founder, who was really kind of taking me under his wings and just building me up to be able to be the person that I am today, owning the company. So every day, was really inspirational for me because I recognized how much I wanted to be a part of this type of environment and the culture that we were building here. Um, when I graduated from school, my degree was very much a jack of all trades, kind of master of none thing, and I just made it a point when I was looking for a place to go and work after college to really find a place where I can exercise a lot of those skills and continue to just refine and grow and learn. And this was just the perfect opportunity to do that. Um, I didn't expect that I might be here as long as I would be. I just knew that I really wanted to be here at that point in time. But my attitude after all those years still hasn't changed. I'm just inspired every day by the work that the team is doing, the opportunities that we get for projects that we work on with clients. And, every day is just, an exciting new opportunity for us. So it's hard not to be inspired.
Very cool. I've worked with you obviously in a couple different capacities. And the one thing that stands out to me is the passion that you and the team have. I've worked with a lot of creative agencies and digital agencies over the years, and a lot of them it's very cookie cutter. There's a lot of turnover of employees. You get sort of a canned approach. Your team is very passionate and very vested in the success of the final deliverable, whether it's branding or website design and development. And it's definitely something that you can feel like you feel like a true extension and part of the team. And that's something that I appreciate. It's like you care about what we're trying to do. You care about your customer, and it's evident in the quality of the work that you produce.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about. If you're not doing something with passion, I think you need to take a hard look in the mirror and wonder what you're doing with yourself. And especially where we're being entrusted with so many important things for all of our clients, and we take that very seriously. And they're tapping us to be, a resource to be able to think creatively and think strategically about how can we accomplish the goals that we have for our branding and marketing. So it's something we take very, very seriously, and we appreciate obviously the business, but also the trust and faith in our approach and our capabilities. So we want to make sure that we're doing our absolute best for every client that we have.
I think that's awesome. Is there like a unique approach that you feel that you take when you're engaging with a client for the first time, or even just on any new project that sets you apart from perhaps some of the other agencies out there, some of the bigger ones?
Yeah, every agency is going to be a little bit different in how they operate and do things, and um, I think the biggest thing that has always been a tenet for us, even as I was just kind of growing up, working here, was that it pays to be a really good listener. And I think there's like it's a very important part of what we do. We try to be as engaging as possible, especially when we're working with a new client, so that we can get as much intel and information and background as we can, regardless of what the project is, but background about what the company does, the competitive market that's out there, where the company's at today, where they see themselves in the not too distant future, and taking that all into account and really trying to just listen so that we can put together a really compelling brand story. Because at the end of the day, that brand story is the thing that helps to guide all the momentum, all the creative, all the efforts that we're going to be doing going forward. So we take a lot of time to really think creatively and strategically about how we can craft that story so that it's going to resonate and be memorable, not just with potential audiences and customers that they might have now, but the employees, internal teams, future hires, just all about developing a culture that is going to be something that people can latch onto and understand and see the value in outside of any particular capabilities. So that's something we are very intently focused on. It really lays the foundation for all of the efforts we're going to do going forward. So we always, really make it a really crucial point of impact on the project to just make sure we're accounting for that early stages.
Yeah, it was very evident to me when you built my website and created and updated the new logo and brand for it. Like you captured it to a T. It captures the essence of who I am, what my interests are, what my passions are, and what On Point Business Advisors is all about. And brand is so absolutely critical to everything for a business. It is foundational for marketing. It's foundational for the strategy. A lot of people overlook that and they think about brand as, yeah, it's just a fancy logo, it's kind of shiny envelope uh, type of stuff, right? But it is absolutely critical. You have to establish your brand in order to do everything, in order to do business development, in order to do sales. And it's really about trust. I always say this, brand is about trust. In the end, companies, yes, they care about price, they care about value, they care about functionality, they care about capabilities and skills, but they're going to buy from that organization or that individual that they trust the most. And so there's no better way, and there's the only real way to resonate and convey trust is through brand.
100%. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. It's There's a misconception among some that brand, as you mentioned, is just as simple as, well, we just need a great looking logo. That's a very important piece to the puzzle, but it's only one of many pieces of the puzzle. Kind of like, if you were to say your name to somebody, that's not going to give them the complete appreciation for who that person is. So there's a lot of different ways that you need to make sure that you're accounting for how are we presenting ourselves to the world? How are we presenting our story, our capabilities? It's a multifaceted thing. And when you're coming to the table and presenting a brand, especially that first round of creative where you're showing what the possibility for the brand is going to be, a couple of different options and routes that you can take, it's more than just putting a logo and some colors in front of them. It's, making sure that they can see the forest through the trees. Here's how this treatment could work on your website. Here's how it could work in a piece of marketing collateral. Having the forethought to really see the brand through to its completion, not just, the first thing in front of you, which is going to be your logo, is a really important thing that we're always trying to stress. And, these projects are collaborative too, where yes, we're the creative and, we need to go and put the idea and the vision and give it a face. But at the same time, we need to be, in order to be good listeners, we need to be able to understand fully everything that makes a business unique. If it's capabilities, if it's the approach, if it's, the advantages over competitors, what sets them apart, all those things are just going to be going into what makes the vision for the brand a good one or one that's short-sighted when it comes to presenting that. So um, it's not the kind of thing that you hand your stuff off to the designer and say make me something that looks great, because at the end of the day, yes, we can certainly do that, but is it going to resonate? Is it on point when it comes to how you want to present yourself? There's a little bit more robust of a degree of background that has to be established there, and that just comes through good conversation and collaboration.
Absolutely. Well said. I think listening and really understanding the client, what their capabilities are, what their objectives are, and what their challenges are is absolutely critical. And I think a lot of agencies kind of forget that when they grow up, perhaps get too big. Um, that's excellent. So let's talk a little bit more about you and taking over the business, right? So it's been about 3 years. What were some of the early challenges you faced when taking over, and how did you overcome them?
Well, I was in a unique position because, yes, I had a tenure here at the company. Yes, I was very familiar with process and, the ins and outs of the business, but I had really big shoes to fill when I took over this company. And that was always the thing that was always on my mind, is that I have to carry through the legacy here of, at the time, which was about, 25 years of operations and relationships that we built up and established, a high, pedigree as far as the creative quality of work, maintaining, the internal culture of the team, just being able to keep all that status quo and make sure there weren't going to be significant, that the company was going to be seen in a significantly different light now that somebody else took over was paramount to me. And that takes time, obviously, to just make sure that you're investing yourself and your resources to make sure that things can be kept up with how well they've been operating for all those years. Um, but over time, naturally, once someone like me, I got a little bit more comfortable, and you have the reassurance of time on your side where you've been doing it for a little bit and owning things for a little while, and you can feel like, okay, maybe things are going to be okay. Now we can maybe take a little bit of a deeper look at what kind of changes should we make, what are going to be improvements when it comes to the day to day for the team, process, how we can handle client relationships, what are software solutions or tools that are out there that's going to help with our workflow. Um, so some of the challenges for me in particular at first were making sure that obviously we're keeping everything status quo and we're keeping up this high quality of work, and being able to maintain these relationships. But then it's also being able to think beyond that and think, what kind of measures can we take to be even more useful, even more applicable, even more successful, with clients that we have now, and then clients that maybe we don't have yet, that we would want to pursue different types of companies we could be working with. So it was a challenge to manage all that. I think the biggest challenge was knowing like when it was okay to make some broader changes and feeling like it was time to do that. Um, but overall, time was really the thing that was just required to develop that level of comfortability. And now that also, was a big thing when it came to the rebrand of the company. At the time, our company was called Dell Design. It was named after our founder, it was his last name. So that was something that was extremely important to me, because although he has, moved on from the company, that's a legacy and a name that was very important to me and very good to me in all my time here. And, we had to make sure that we were preserving the integrity of this agency, even, beyond him moving on. So, Um, having the having the time to ensure that that was going to be preserved, and then be able to think about what is the next iteration of the company going to look like in terms of the brand and the name, the identity. That was a pretty big effort to have to not only get done, and all the things that come with a rebranding project, but just having the faith and the courage to make such a big change at that point. So it's probably one of the biggest challenges I faced.
That's great. That's awesome. So how did you come up with the name Receptor? And what does that mean?
So for me, I really wanted to name the company after something that was a little bit bigger than just myself, because I play a role at the company, but I'm one of many folks here that uh, is responsible for all the great work that we're doing day in and day out. So very much like I was describing as far as process and being a good listener and just trying to take all of the backstory into account when it comes to branding projects, I was attracted to the name Receptor, which is more of a scientific term. I'm sure it's something that we've all heard or used at one point in our lives, but the long and short of it is that a receptor is something that is going to receive an input signal and is going to emit an appropriate response. And from a metaphoric, kind of symbolic perspective, I thought that really resonated with how we wanted to, represent ourselves. And regardless of the size of the client, the type of the industry, if they're a startup or if they're an established, company, the process is still largely the same. We have to make sure we're doing our job to really learn the ins and outs of what the company's doing, how they want to present themselves now and in the short future, and then find a creative way of putting together a compelling brand that accomplishes all of those things. So that name was something that really struck a chord with me, and I hung on to it for a really long time in the back of my head until we felt like it was time to unveil it and just embrace it as the new identity for the firm.
Very cool. Very cool. Were there any missteps along the way?
Plenty. That's just part of the process. But nothing that I'm grateful to say, or at least nothing yet, that has been terribly detrimental to the company. Um, just like in life, every day is a new experience for yourself, and you're going to be tasked with things that you haven't, had the luxury of being able to experience before, and that comes with a sense of exploration and just feeling out the situation and trying to do what you think is best. And I can say that I'm at least I've always been true to that in any decisions that we're making here as a company, just trying to do what is best, not only for ourselves, but in the best interests of our clients and our team. So sure, there's certainly missteps along the way. You're always wondering, could I manage that project a little bit better? Should I have reached out sooner about something that may have come up? Or things or challenges, could they have been circumvented if I had the forethought of experiencing this once before? There's always going to be things like that. Um, but you know, what can you do? That's life, and you just need to learn from it and take that experience and just make sure that you're putting your best foot forward for the next time that type of challenge rolls along.
So what's been the most rewarding part of the journey so far for you?
I would say we've built a really incredible team here that has been able to do an incredible amount of great work for so many different types of clients and relations that we've had along the way. And it, for me, it's a very rewarding thing to be able to do that because of just my tenure here. I've seen so many different iterations of this team. People come and go, clients come and go. It's a very natural thing. But for me to rise up in the ranks and wondering that if I'm going to be here next month when I'm starting out as an intern, to looking in the mirror and looking back and saying, I own this company now. It's it's a triumph. I never really envisioned this for myself, but um, I'm only part of the picture here. It's our team is really the lifeblood of what we do. And it's very rewarding to just be able to have put together such a great team. That's a good mix of people that had been here, for years, like myself, and had stuck it out. But we've also brought new people on along the way. Seeing all that coalesce into the iteration of the agency that we have now, and just seeing what the creative output as a whole is here is incredibly rewarding. I'm rewarded every day, just seeing what we do here. So
Awesome. That is really good. That's great. Let me ask you this. Was there anything that you wish you had known before you took over the business? And are there any lessons in that for anyone else who might be in a similar situation or thinking about doing something similar?
I want to say I wish I knew how hard it was going to be, but I knew it was going to be hard. And this is something I talked a lot with my founder about when he was kind of gearing me up for this, which he gave me a lot of runway and a lot of coaching and time, and really tried to position the transfer of the business in a way that I was going to have that time to really get acclimated to the role. But despite all of that, the things that we would always talk about was you're never really ready until you're in it. You can't really have that appreciation for exactly what that's going to do to your day-to-day life, to the team, the culture, how you manage the clients. Like, you're never really going to truly appreciate that until you're in those shoes, and that was very true.
Hmm.
Um, so, but I don't think there's any way I could have truly known that. It'd be a nice thing to have known, but you're never really going to know until you're taking that leap of faith, and you're at the edge of the diving board and ready to dive in. So. Um, for me, I think if anything else too, it was just maybe coming to the conclusion sooner that and having the confidence to make some of those changes that I described, so soon after taking over. But that just comes with developing a level of comfort and just feeling like it's the right time and the right place to start making some of those bigger changes that kind of change the trajectory and the day to day of what the company's doing. So. But again, those are just experiences. So a hard thing to quantify until you're really living and breathing it.
That's right. It's words of wisdom. You can prepare your whole life for something, but you'll never truly feel like you're ready to do it. It's the Pareto principle, right? Be 80% ready for anything to happen when that time comes. And I often use the analogy. You talk about jumping off the diving board. I talk about, like, jumping out of an airplane. Um,
Hmm.
Sometimes you just got to have faith and you got to make that leap. As long as you got a parachute on, uh,
Hmm.
and you just got to do it. And the hardest part is making that leap. And then once you're in it, you know what to do, and you'll figure things out, and it all works out. Um, so that's awesome. Let's switch gears here and talk about the work that we did together. Okay. And so
Yeah.
everybody, just so everyone knows, Matt and I completed an engagement to develop a strategic business plan for Receptor's future growth. So Matt, first off, what was the major challenge, or I should say objective, that caused you to want to work with me?
Of course. Yeah. So this is probably a good segue too with some of the other things that I was describing, because it was twofold. Obviously, I was getting used to life as a business owner and running the show here in earnest. Um, and that, is the kind of thing that I needed some different perspective on. I was largely limited to just what I picked up from my peers, and of course what I learned from my founder. But as time had gone on, I wanted to make sure that I had the right lens and the right perspective in terms of how I could be, charting the course for what the company would be doing in the next 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 years. And I think that just comes from, having input and perspective from those that you trust, and, know those that know their stuff. So I was really in need of something like that at that point in my ownership. But at the same time, too, I'm also looking ahead to, business and revenue, and what are some things that we can do here at the company to help to encourage us to continue to succeed there. I was in a position where I was taking over a company that was, a well-oiled machine. It was full speed ahead. We already had a lot of clients and just a very kind of steady influx of work. We were largely always a very referral-based business, which is a blessing. It's a great problem to have. But for that reason, it was something that I wanted to be able to explore in terms of how we could find other ways of attracting clients to our business and just establishing new relationships. So, well, we appreciate those relationships that we have now and just want to continue to just, make sure that we're preserving those and doing our best for those clients. We want to make sure we're doing something for ourselves in terms of just how we can market and promote ourselves, something that's a little bit more, purposely self-serving so that we can start to just continue to, find new folks that we can be working with. So, the twofold approach there, just having some additional perspective to keep in mind as we're charting the course for the next iteration of the business as I've taken over, and then finding ways of doing that were really important to me.
Great. So we knew that you needed a strategic business plan, and a lot of people have had experience doing that. And most people think of creating a business plan as something that's very daunting, time consuming, not a very fun process. And then you end up with a 25, 50-page document that you throw on the desk or put up on the shelf and you never look at it again.
Mhm.
We utilized Vern Harnish's Scaling Up One-Page Strategic Plan, otherwise known as the OPSP. So on that journey to develop your plan, we did that over the course of about 6 weeks, and we met weekly and biweekly. Tell us what that experience was like.
Yeah, so it was a really positive one for me where I was at a moment in my time here where I was being very reflective and thinking about my own leadership style, what was important to me, what was important for the company, what was going to be important to the team, process wise, workflow wise, how we could be serving our clients. So it was a very important thing for me to be able to feel like I was tapped into what was going to be important, and having a clear path to being able to do that. So those weekly meetings and just kind of getting up to speed, developing kind of a sense of like a better understanding of like my own style, from the perspective of somebody else, uh, was a really good entry point to be able to really decide, what aspects of like the next iteration of the business were going to be worth pursuing, and what's the pathway to do that. So it was a very beneficial thing for me.
And how is that different than anything you'd done before?
I'd never done anything like that before, so it was extremely different. And I think for me, especially just with a very high output creative agency that has a very, small team in the grand scheme of how big agencies could be, it's like you're operating with blinders on every single day sometimes. You're just trying to keep your head above water, get everything done, make sure you're doing your best for every single person on the team, your clients, etc. Um, I needed that perspective. I had to take a step back and just make sure that I was accounting for and focusing on what was truly important to run the business, because I'm at a phase now here where I'm not just, clocking in and just doing the creative and then clocking out. I've got much bigger picture things to make sure that I'm accounting for, because the success of the business and just how that affects the team and our clients, it really boils down to, having a good plan together. So that was an extremely important thing for me to be able to make sure that I was being accounting for.
That's great. And how has that experience informed your thinking differently now going forward?
It's stressing the importance of getting out of your own head sometimes and just trying to make sure that you're focused on a bigger picture than the specifics of what's in front of you at any given time.
Mhm.
Um, I have the luxury of having a really fantastic team here that is more than willing to pick up the slack and do what's needed every single day and make sure that I can continue to just progress in my new role here, which still feels very new, even though it's hard to believe I'm looking back at the calendar and realizing how long now I've kind of been in this position. But just continuing to just be able to make sure that I'm doing what I have to do as the owner of the business and kind of the figurehead here to make sure that all that day-to-day stuff is, while it's important, it's not overshadowing the bigger picture that's looming in terms of how we need to be approaching our business.
Yeah, you were spending because you are such a small agency and you're not just running it, you're doing the work yourself. You were spending an inordinate amount of time working in the business versus working on the business. And so that was a shift for you was to actually be able to step back, have some perspective, look strategically at the business and work on it as a true business owner.
For sure. Yeah. It was a really big shift in mindset for me in particular. And I'm sure I'm, not alone in this struggle, but, I was always, and I still continue to be, but just making sure that, I'm accounting for every little box that I have to check in a given day. Um, but just because there's a lot of stuff that has to get done doesn't mean I have to be the only one doing it. And you have to put a lot of trust and faith in others around you and make sure that, you're giving yourself the license and the time to put together a good plan that just keeps everybody on track. That's a very important role. Um, so having the hindsight now to just be able to be better positioned to do that today and then going forward was just a very big thing for me to have to learn and also have the dedication, of course, and just the support to be able to follow through with it.
It's phenomenal. So sounds like it was definitely a growth experience for you. Let's talk a bit about the results and the outcome. What was the result of our time working together besides we built and we completed the one-page strategic plan?
Of course, yeah. So I mean, for me, from a foundational kind of leadership building perspective, that's an invaluable thing to have taken from this. I feel like I have a better perspective now on the types of things that I really should be focusing more on to just help to encourage the ongoing success of everything that we're doing here day in and day out. So that was a critical outcome from this. But as a more tangible outcome in terms of like the strategic planning, uh, it gave me some benchmarks to try to identify that could be an indicator of what does that success look like. What are some realistic and then of course bigger goals that we can be targeting and working towards. What does that look like? What is going to be just having the understanding of what makes Receptor successful. It's not just saying, "Hey, we did great work." It's there are many more aspects to it than that. So having things to focus on, like the number of new client acquisitions year over year, and how that can encourage a revenue increase of X that gets us closer to certain goals that we might have. How I can use that as an opportunity to be more forward thinking about the business, be more in the realm of working, on the business, not for it, kind of like you were saying. Thinking about what are new avenues that we can continue to add as far as services and capabilities that just is mindful of the ever changing nature of how marketing and design and all that is done every day, making sure that we're doing what we can so that we can just continue to be successful from that front. Um, and then just making sure that, I'm doing my best to support the team and I have the right frame of reference and degree of leadership so that I can just encourage all these results, from the top here, so that my team can be their very best and continue to succeed as well. So all that was invaluable takeaways for me.
That's great. That's great to hear. And that was all you. I just guided you through the process and I asked you the questions, and that was all your thinking and introspective thought process that arrived at that. And just for the audience and context, we didn't jump right into just goals and metrics and KPIs. We started off with first looking at, we did a SWOT analysis, right, on the business. You looked at what your strengths and some of the weaknesses might be, some of the capabilities and threats. You developed a strategic vision and a target for ultimately Receptor would be, what you wanted it to be. You identify what your core values and beliefs are, your purpose. And then from all of that, then we started to drill down on specific targets. Where do you want to be in 10, 20 years with the business? And then what does next year look like? Or what does 3 to 5 years look like in order to get there? Then what does next year look like? And then what does next quarter look like? And so, we started at the 10,000-foot view, and then we drilled down and we got extremely specific about what it is exactly you were going to achieve, when you were going to achieve it, and how are you going to achieve it.
Yeah, and don't sell yourself short because that's a lot of work to set up as well. And just come to the table with that type of plan so that, I can react to that, think about it, and internalize what that means for, how we should be charting, the trajectory of what Receptor is doing. So you have to start somewhere and you need a foundation to build on. And that was something that I was really in need of is, is it just like what makes this company successful? Is it just revenue? Is it, like how can we come to that determination of what is going to enable me to achieve those goals here with the team? So that was extremely important, and hence why I'm so appreciative of the help they gave me.
Yeah. Now you've got this strategic business plan. It's on one page. Page might be this big, but again, it's something it's tangible, right? You can actually use it. You can refer to it. It's your roadmap, right? If you will, for you and the team. Now you rolled this out to the team. You did a kickoff in the spring of this past year. How did the team respond to it?
Very well. It was very illuminating for them. I as with my founder when he was running the show, and perhaps this is just something that has just been legacy process or just something that I've carried with me as I was kind of learning the ropes and kind of feeling my way through becoming an ownership here. But being a small team operationally and kind of the back ends, the financial pieces, all that stuff was largely done by our founder and has continued to largely be done by me. I try to make that stuff known to people when I feel like it's really important, but I also want people to be able to focus on the type of stuff that they more than likely are going to be most passionate about, which is just doing the creative and doing the work. It's important to know how your business is doing, of course, and I wanted to make sure that I used that time to talk a little bit about the current state of the company, how things were going, illuminating some things about the size of certain relationships, for example, the method to the madness, and like why certain things are important, why we stress certain details over others. So being able to be open like that was a little bit of a new experience for me, and it was certainly a new thing for my team to be able to hear and learn about. But at the end of the day, I think we all walked away feeling like, okay, we all have a little bit of a more aligned sense of what's going on here at Receptor, not only just in terms of what we're doing today, but what is the long-term vision? What does it look like in terms of new capabilities you want to build on? Roles and responsibilities, and making sure that everybody's on the same page about what's expected of them. Considering new hires, what kind of gaps we might have in our team compared to what those goals are looking at. So it was a very good open conversation, one that isn't something that we would typically have, but I appreciated being challenged to present that kind of thing to the team, and I don't think it's going to be the last time either.
Absolutely. It's part of the process, right? It's important to do quarterly updates and to make adjustments to the plan as you're going along. How are you doing? How are we doing against that plan? Where do we need to course correct? There's so many changes happening just in the marketplace and in the economy, and so it's intended to be flexible and agile, and so that's how you need to manage to it. So let me ask you this, right? So we're a little bit more than halfway through the year. How are you doing against the plan to date?
We're doing great. I think we're right on track with what we had established for this year. The two biggest tenets, as far as like the things to be working towards in particular, that I feel like are going to be a good litmus test for our just continued success and our growth, was new client acquisition as well as revenue year over year. We're on track to meet those goals. We had a really uh, healthy goal for what we can do as far as new client acquisition, which at this phase in the year, the calendar year, we are on track to meet those goals, which is really exciting. We still got some work to do, of course, and none of that is assured. But so far, we're tracking well against that. And that's such an important thing for my business because, especially where we've been largely so referral based, it's kind of a proof point with to just how important this relationship could be with any new client. So if we continue to get new clients, continue to get people enrolled, and continue to be able to just to have ongoing ways that we can help them, it's just a great indicator of just our continued success and our growth. And then, of course, revenue being an important, mark we're trying to hit as well. That's always something that's going to be able to encourage what we can do as far as some of those goals, as far as bringing on additional members of the team, bringing on additional capabilities and services, all those kinds of things. So we're thankfully well on our way. We've got a little bit of work to do still here, of course, but things are looking good.
That's awesome to hear. I love it when a plan comes together. How
Me
is
too.
For sure, for sure. It's a great success story. How is the team continuing to respond to the plan?
Yeah, I mean, they're responding well. I think everybody was on the same page uh, when we laid this out for them, and that conversation that we had a few months back in the springtime, as you mentioned. Um, and I've been able to just be upfront with how we're doing about that, as we go throughout the year, how closely we are to tracking those goals and meeting some of those expectations that we had as far as what we could do for the business. So it's great. I mean, I think if anything, the team feels like they're a bit more involved. They have a little kind of a bit of a peek behind the curtain as to like, what Receptor is doing. And it's helped to get some good momentum around some marketing initiatives and things that we're kind of getting back to doing that, we hadn't done in many years as we were kind of getting back up to speed and learning the ropes and just feeling our way through the change in ownership and the new brand identity. So we're excited about some things that we're going to be rolling out a little later this year.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. So, what did you, this might be a little bit redundant, but what did you enjoy most about your experience working with me together on this?
I would say very much like what our approach is to client relationships and brand building, where we really take a lot of time to be a good listener, try to put ourselves in the shoes of our client, and just making sure that we're doing everything we can to, um, meet the goals and expectations that they have. That's something that I really appreciated working with you on because I feel like you really took the time to not only understand the business but get to know me personally. The tests that we did and the things that helped to give you a little bit more of a clearer picture on my leadership style, how I approach things, how I come about things. I'm sure I'm not the most unique person in the world, but I'm sure there were some things about that was maybe a little bit different than how others might have done things because, as I mentioned, my story and how I got here is a little unique. Um, so I really appreciated that, and it was a really helpful thing for me to not only have the foundation for like how that I was going to be able to see, through the next iteration of the business and how I was able to make sure it was going to be successful, but it was in tune with what was important to me and my own style. It didn't come as like a best practice list and things that you should follow. It was more like, here are things that can be done in a way that's catered to your unique style and is going to be, relevant for your business and the things that you have in mind. So that for me, I mean, being able to start off with something like that really helped lay the groundwork for those conversations around uh, being a little bit more specific about the business and what the next path was going to be for that just helped to make that portion of the engagement all the more meaningful. So I appreciated that.
That's great to hear. And what you're referring to is we started off before we even got into the planning process. We started off doing a trimetrics EQ assessment, and that was a combination of DISC, which is your behavioral communication style, your key drivers, and then your emotional intelligence. And it's an incredibly useful tool for executives and business owners and leaders to really truly understand their own style and what motivates them and what are some of the inhibitors. But it also helped me to get to know you and understand you better so that we could have a much stronger working relationship. What would you tell anyone who's looking to grow their business or doesn't know where to start, or perhaps they know they need a strategic business plan and they don't know, again, they don't know where to start. How do they get
Mhm.
going?
I mean, I would say that I've come to learn that it's critical. As I mentioned, operationally, I was not doing the best job at looking ahead, seeing, the forest through the trees, and just trying to make sure that every day I had done what I could to make sure that the business was going to be successful, which I think that collectively, myself and the team here did a good job of doing over those kind of growing pain years. But as I was coming to think about what was going to really make us successful going forward and get out of this daily grind that I found myself in, I realized the importance of having a dedicated plan. It gives you something to work towards. It gives you dedicated benchmarks to follow, and it kind of changes you and trains your brain a little bit to think a little bit differently as far as what you need to do on a given day and how that's going to be the catalyst for your success. So having the plan in place, it's an easy thing to just push off and feel like I'll get to it whenever, or I don't have the time for it right now, I'll figure it out at some point. I can't stress enough that it's an important thing to get yourself out of that mode of thinking as best you can. I know it's really hard. It was very hard for me, but in the end, it just helps to put you in a better place where you're better positioned to get out of the rat race every day and know that you're doing what is most essential to, encourage the business to continue to succeed. So I would highly recommend anybody similar to myself, being a pretty young business owner in the grand scheme of things, um, to consider something like that to just give you the foundation for what you need to move forward.
Awesome. That's great. So as a result of this work and the progress you've made against the plan that we built, what's next for Receptor? Any really big plans? Anything that you want to reveal or give at least a hint or sneak peek to the audience?
I won't give too much away, but I alluded to this a little earlier in that we are working on a pretty robust campaign for ourselves. Historically, we would send out usually quarterly direct mail projects to clients, friends, relations, partners, that were purely inspirational, very creative things that we would send to people that, it's the old surprise and delight adage. You're not expecting to get something like this in the mail. And it would always come at a time that is either seasonally relevant or just culturally relevant. And we put together an interesting package that just lets people know that, first of all, we're thinking about them and it keeps us top of mind as a result. So we got away from that a little bit, once I started taking over twofold. One, I just felt like I didn't have the time and dedication and resources to do that kind of thing. But two, there was also COVID and direct mail and just the nature of how that all worked. A lot of changes in the workforce. Are people working remotely? Are they at an office? Are they at home? it just really changed how that process was going to work. But now that after all this effort and after the dust has settled on that situation, we are going to be doing a campaign again soon. We're going to be posting a lot on social media. There's going to be a pretty big gamut of assets that are going to come as a result of that. So if you're interested in learning more about that, or you just want to see what we came up with, or if you're just genuinely interested in learning more about the business and what we do here at Receptor, you can check out our website. It's receptor.design. We're also on social media as well, on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. You can sign up for our newsletter in the footer of our website as well. And you'll be the first to know about all the fun stuff we got in the works showing up in a little later this year.
Great. I can't wait to see it. I'm looking forward to that. I know it's going to be great based on the quality of work that you're doing. So you just told people how they can follow you online. If anyone's interested to get in touch with you directly or specifically, or interested in hiring Receptor, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I would say definitely check out our website. We have a contact form in there that you can reach out to with any questions or, inquiries as far as how we can help. There's a tremendous amount of work on the site, a wide variety of types of projects to give you a sense of like the breadth of things that we can do. But if anything, if we sound like we could be a good fit for any project, big or small, I'm always just intent on making the relationship happen, and um, I'm happy to talk, about any type of project that you might have consideration for. So definitely feel free to reach out and be happy to schedule time to meet and see how we can help.
Awesome. That's great. Matt, thanks again for sharing your story with us and talking so openly about the work that we did together. I truly enjoyed it, and you took it to heart, and that's evident in the results that you've gotten so far. So thank you for that. If you
Of
enjoyed,
course.
awesome. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Get On Point podcast on YouTube and on Spotify, and connect with me on LinkedIn or at onpoint-advisors.com. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, get on point, unlock your growth potential, and transform your business.